China's working on its Made in China 2025 push.
The US is playing with fire, but China has fire too.
Global economic powerhouse.
Young Chinese people are becoming disillusioned with everyday life.
China's mobile payment,
cashless.
and cashless society all use QR codes.
China. People think I don't like China. I love China.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of China What's the Future? We've got a very special guest today. Thank you for coming on the show, Bessie.
Thank you very much for inviting me, Arnold.
It's such an honor to have you here. So, for our audience, Bessie had a 27-year career at WPP. You were the CEO of, I believe, Group M?
Before WPP China CEO.
Before WPP China, and then became the WPP CEO of WPP China.
Yeah.
I was reading some stuff last night, and I remember seeing this amazing figure. WPP China contributed $1.6 billion of revenue while you were there.
1.2
billion.
Yeah,
sorry,
I wish it was 1.6.
A mere 1.2 billion.
But still, WPP China was at that time was the third largest country or market for WPP.
For WPP, it was I'm guessing US and UK were the top two.
Exactly.
Amazing. And this was back in the days as well, before China had such a presence on the global stage.
Yeah.
This was 2013, 12?
Well, I left WPP 2017.
2017.
Yeah, but I was promoted to WPP China CEO in 2013. Oh, so April Fool's Day, I remember.
April Fool's Day.
Yeah,
I thought
maybe I won't get it.
Did you get a call from Martin Sorrow?
Yeah, sorry, that's just
April
a joke.
Fools. I don't see him being that kind of guy, though. It seems quite serious.
Oh, you don't know Martin, Sir Martin.
You're right. I don't know Sir Martin. Maybe you could introduce yourself, because you've got some really interesting projects right now to our audience.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, Arnold. I'm very used to doing blog these days, but vlog is the first time ever, so I'm very nervous, but it's a great experience. Thank you. It's a lovely setting.
Thank you.
So my career actually very simple. I was with WPP for
simple but amazing.
I was with WPP for altogether 27 years. So 1990, after I finished graduate school in the US, I returned to Taiwan, where I'm originally from. I wanted to work in the advertising industry. So I sent out CV, and WPP's agency, JWT, that name is no longer exists now.
Yeah.
But JWT responded first, so I joined JWT as a media planner. So I worked from my way up, from the very bottom. So I was a media planner. Then 1997, WPP spun out the media department from Ogilvy and JWT to form Mindshare. You probably got too young for that history. But we all got, because we were in media, so we all got relocated or transferred to Mindshare. So from Mindshare Taiwan, then 2002 to Mindshare Shanghai, then Mindshare China CEO in 2004. Then 2006, WPP decided to form a mini parent group called Group M that managed all the media assets in the group for WPP. So I was promoted to Group M China CEO in January 2006. So I was in that position for 7 years. Then the WPP China CEO in 2013. I did that for 4 years. But in the same time, thanks to Sir Martin's kindness and consideration, he agreed for me to split my time 60-40 between WPP China CEO and my own sort of side project.
That's amazing. As if managing a 1.2 billion turnover business is not enough. You're like, you know what? I'm just going to do something else just to keep myself busy.
I think because there's so much interesting stuff happening in China. And at that, by 2013, I was in the agency world for 23 years already. I feel that I need to do something different just to see what's out there, And also, my whole life was with one group. I've never worked for anyone else. So for me, having a side project that still has high relevance to what we do or what I do every day in WPP will be a great compliment. So my side project is my current company, actually. So I founded Withinlink in January 2015. Withinlink is a strategic investor and incubator of marketing technology startup in China. So most of them are in China, for a start. So it's been going on for 5 years now.
Wow.
I have 16 companies on my portfolio. We raised a very small fund at the end of 2016, but we invested with most of the money already. So one of the 16th company has just gone IPO in Shenzhen
Really?
stock
Congrats.
market in March this year. So yeah, we're very happy, and it's a mobile big data company.
What
So
is
they're the company is called Getui.
Getui, of course.
Getui. Well, their proper name is 每日互动. But after we invest, we were not so sure whether their IPO will be approved because, data security is such a sensitive subject everywhere, not just China. So for a long time, we were a bit concerned, maybe the IPO may not be approved and stuff. But in the end, it was approved. So we were very encouraged. So the government is not just wiping out anything that has to do with data. So as long as your model is legitimate and the way that your data is captured and collected is completely legitimate, and you actually protected the users' privacy and data security, the government will appreciate that, and then will give you the green light to go IPO.
I mean, that's a very good point, actually, because when I do workshops and talks, a lot of the first thing that people ask a lot is, what do Chinese government censor? And my answer is always that they're far too busy to worry about your marketing technology, your marketing campaigns. I think they got bigger fish to fry. Is that the case? Generally, they're not really too much. They don't really censor too much around kind of, I guess, marketing and social media and marketing data. And I think that's quite a big kind of myth around how much the Chinese government actually gets involved in the day-to-day of people.
First of all, I think content censorship at this moment is no longer unique to China. I mean, if you look at Facebook and Instagram, Google, they're all doing some sort of censorship. But we zoom into marketing. Funny enough, I don't think the government censor that much around marketing content. It's really the people who are doing the censoring, if you know what I mean. When I say censoring, meaning if your marketing message somehow offended the Chinese consumer, they are going to come out and let you know that they're not happy.
Yeah, you're right.
Right,
actually.
so
Chinese,
you remember?
Chinese social media is probably one of the most brutal places your brand can be anywhere.
Exactly. And then the people's voice will be so loud that the government will step out and then say, okay, we're going to do something about this. So it's really not the government they're censoring the marketing.
You got to watch out for the consumers more than the government.
Exactly.
It's so true.
And we have so many episodes in the last, 3 years that the Western brands are, I wouldn't say they're not careful. It's just that it's a very different cultural differences. So for them, it might be something they thought it was nice and cute, and it will be perfectly fine in a Western society. But somehow there's a landmine in China. They just step on without knowing that. Oh God.
Yeah. All of a sudden, their brand is being boycotted everywhere. I think we all know which example we're talking about.
Exactly.
I think that's been talked enough.
Exactly.
You know what, Bessie? I could literally ask you a million questions, talk to you all day. Unfortunately, we don't have that time. So we're going to focus on 3 topics.
Sure.
The first one is the difference between Chinese marketing and Western marketing. And we want to be quite strategic here for our audience because we had plenty of people before talk about the platforms, the technology. So it's, I guess, in general about creative performance, social, anything that's kind of more strategic, high level tactical, maybe even. Second thing, marketing technology in China. Again, you're obviously an expert in that area, having met, I'm sure, and so many marketing technology businesses and obviously invested in 16 of them. And then finally, as we always do on the show, it's about looking at the future, i.e. WTF.
Okay.
So I think we could get started on the differences. And again, it's more about strategic, I guess, than the differences in platforms like WeChat or Facebook and Weibo versus Twitter. When you worked or rather when you led WPP and Group M, what do you think were the biggest differences between kind of like how clients approach marketing strategy and objectives in China versus in the West? I mean, I have a few ideas in mind. I would love to hear from kind of your experience.
Sure. Well, Arnold, you and your company has done enough business with Chinese brands or Chinese companies, so you know this most famous phrase: China is different. I would only agree half, to that sentence. Yes, there are areas that China is different, but there are other areas like the general marketing principle is actually the same.
Yep.
I think that's universal. But I think the challenges or the approach that the marketeers in China took, the differences is, like you said, a lot of the platforms that's universal, that's global, they're not available in China. And China, because of the way that the platform approach users, which I'm sure you have in your other episodes, they have developed something that's quite unique there in China. So, for instance, WeChat's mini program, right? It's a mini app within an app. Now, how do you market your brands in that environment? That sort of environment does not exist anywhere else in the world. So the challenges for marketers especially multinational companies, is they have no one to turn to for best practice import, if you know what I mean.
It's all new for them.
Very new. Not like other markets where you have Facebook, then you can turn to the headquarters and say, hey, do we have best practice that you can gather for us through the global networks that we can learn from? There's nothing like that the multinational marketeers can learn from. But rather, they actually learn from local Chinese brands. Their local Chinese brands, again, they're local. So the way that they fight the marketing world is very different. A lot of them actually started off maybe just as an online brand only. They don't have offline retail at all. Xiaomi is a great example, right? So Xiaomi, when they first started, they don't really do any official marketing. So there are a lot of these sort of things that the multinational brands are actually learning from local Chinese brands. And how do local Chinese brands learn? They learn by trial and error.
Yeah, very fast.
It's a very fast and China speed. I think that trial and error, sort of the risk-taking appetite, is quite small in a multinational brand, but it's quite big in local Chinese brands, and they're not afraid of making mistake. But you learn from the mistake quickly, and then you move on to the next thing. So I think that's the difference.
That's a big difference in, I guess, the way they approach not just marketing, but also business in general, right? There's a few things you said in there I think that was super insightful for our audience. One thing is that rather than looking at kind of, I guess, trying to replicate your global strategy, look at Chinese brands and learn from Chinese brands, because these guys, they know the people, they know the platform, they're quick. Like you said, they've done trial and error, so they know what works and what doesn't. The second thing I thought was really interesting is and we talk about this sometimes, kind of the rapid innovation model of China and Chinese brands, and how, and I guess just kind of like how fast they are at turning around strategies and approaches to certain products and services and getting that out to the consumer. Do you think, I guess my next question is, do you think Chinese brands approach business objectives relating to marketing differently? Because like you said, a lot of Western brands are very safe. It's because they have like a brand history to protect. People like Unilever, they build long-term brands. Whereas in China, do you think it's still much focused on kind of short-term objectives, such as sales and distribution, or do you think that's changing as the market evolves and as kind of brands and companies evolve?
Well, it depends how you look at where in China you look at those so-called brand assets, right? So in the first tier cities, much better developed city like Beijing and Shanghai and Shenzhen, Hangzhou, people there are much more exposed to international branding, and they travel probably a lot more. So big brands, international brands like Unilever, P&G, they know it's an international brand. But when you go down to tier 5 and tier 6, they may not know who Unilever is.
Yeah.
So you don't really have so-called a brand assets that you have to protect. What are you protecting it from?
That's a good point.
I remember going on to a company's a global leadership conference, and I said to the leaders in the conference that I'm sure, Arnold, you probably feel the same too. I'm sure all of you had this private moment, whether it's in a loo or showering or, in your sitting in your study room looking far into the future thinking, I wish I could start my business all over again.
Oh my God, all the time.
Exactly. And if I had the chance, this is how I would do it differently. Now, China presents that opportunity for you to do it completely differently.
I love that.
And there are brands from the West, a lot of the Chinese don't know about. So you have a fresh start opportunity. But if you choose to replicate what you've done elsewhere, of course, that's your choice. But it may not mean as much to Chinese consumer as you thought it will mean. So in the end, you're probably not protecting much. But
because they don't know you anyway. That's such a good point.
yeah, but because of that protection, it slows down your decision-making process. And if you're a big multinational, you tend to operate on a metrics system, right? The metrics is that you have so many people voicing out their opinions and concerns, but nobody wants to take the decision because nobody wants to take up the ownership or the accountability. So that decision-making process is too slow for China. But Chinese brand, for its worth, is top-down a lot of time. Because
for better or for worse.
Yeah, because a lot of the Chinese brands, the founders are still very involved in the business.
It's all very new, right?
Exactly, like Xiaomi, right? The founder, Lei Jun, is still very much involved on a day-to-day basis. And he does his social networks messages on a daily basis across platforms.
Himself?
Yeah, himself.
Wow.
Now, of course, I don't know whether he actually wrote those, but at least he sent it, out from his account. So when the founders are still involved in a day-to-day operation or day-to-day business, decision-making is a lot quicker in China. So it's, on the one hand, it's the Chinese consumers are not satisfied with what you're offering yesterday. They always want something new that gives you the pressure. And the second is the local Chinese business, the owners or the founders or the decision-making process is a lot quicker and shorter than the multinational brands. And that's why they can almost evolve together with the market. But the multinational brands, God, by the time that your decision is finally made by your headquarters, you turn around and say, opportunity is gone.
The consumers moved on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the same with platform. So you probably see that not every platform get to have a longevity in your lifespan like WeChat or like Tencent has, right? So a lot of the platform, they're so popular maybe 3-4 years ago and no longer exist. So that's how fast the market evolved. But in a big multinational organization, I guess control took over the precedent. What control is the real agenda people are striving. So I need to make sure that I'm perceived in the control seat or in the driver's seat. So everything has to be approved by someone in the headquarters, someone in Asia Pacific, and that somehow it costs you. It costs you the China opportunity.
I guess there's probably a legacy behavior in the way that they've always operated as well. So it's difficult for them to suddenly change to like a rapid innovation model or like a rapid decision-making model in China. So in that case, then again, that was super insightful. Thank you very much, Bessie. I think I'm learning a lot just sitting here talking with you. In that case, do you think actually, because a lot of times we get brands that maybe necessarily doesn't have the brand power of Unilever brands or P&G brands, smaller brands, I guess. Do you think they actually have an advantage in China because they're founder-operated businesses, they're new, they don't have legacy behaviors to hand on to, legacy decision-making behaviors? Do you have any advice for those brands that are looking to get into China?
Smaller brands that definitely has a better advantage in terms of staying nimble.
Yeah.
And have a much shorter decision-making process than bigger brands because you don't have a complicated organization structure that you have to deal with. But again, you need to realize that you need to know for first thing that that's your advantage. And second of all, you need to make that advantage work for you. even if you're a much smaller brand, but if your headquarter is in, say, in London or in New York or in San Francisco, and you insist that everything still has to travel back to the headquarter in order to get clearance, and you don't want to empower your local operation team, then you're still in that slower decision-making process. So I think my advice to those smaller brands is you need to understand the true advantage of your nimbleness and make that work for you in China. So that's one thing. And second is you don't have to start China always from Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou.
Yeah.
China is like one European continent. There are second, third tier cities that they're population-wise bigger than London. Right, so you have wealthy people scattered around in China. They don't only just live in Beijing, Shanghai.
Yep.
So you need to really take a deep dive into where are the various opportunity pots in China, and where will be your best bet, to start. So you're starting at second tier, third tier cities. First of all, cost of operating is probably cheaper, and you will probably have a more welcoming consumers in those tier markets. So that would be the second advice I would give.
That's great advice. And I guess they're more hungry as well, because many brands forget about those consumers and they go straight to tier one, like Shanghai and Beijing.
And also the lower tier cities consumers might, to your surprise, might have bigger consumption power.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those younger generation, they probably still live with their parents.
That's a very good point,
so
actually.
They don't have to spend 1/3 of their salary on apartment rental, and another 1/3 on commuting or public transport. So if they earn 10,000 renminbi a month, they probably have 9,000 to spend. Versus someone in Shanghai earning 30,000 a month, but 1/3 is gone to rental, another 1/3 is gone to transport. They have the same consumption.
Restaurant food and
exactly, they have social as well. So you don't underestimate the consumption power, by your target audience in the lower tier cities. They might surprise you if you do it right.
That's a very good point. Thank you, Bessie. I was wondering if we could maybe just quickly talk about Chinese creative and what your thoughts are on Chinese creative, because I went to the Shanghai Advertising Festival, I think it was the start of this year, around March time. And I hear people talking about Chinese creative and how like Chinese agencies or Chinese marketing landscape is not as creative as the West. Something I completely disagree with. But I think the way maybe they execute the campaigns are slightly different, and what China perceives as a creative piece of marketing might be different to what the West perceives as a creative piece of marketing.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on Chinese creative versus global creative work?
Now, the reason why I chose to be a lot more active with Cannes Lions is because I'm gonna try and see, if I can help close that gap of understanding and gap of insights into how many local Chinese brands and local Chinese agencies are doing marketing. You're right. I agree with you to disagree with the statement that Chinese creative environment or industry is less creative. It's not true. But a lot of those innovative marketing really came out of local brands and local Chinese agency. Now they probably because lack of international exposure, they certainly are not as familiar with what platform do you go on to showcase your marketing innovation, not like the multinationals, right? So they're not familiar with how Cannes Lions is operated. I remember a couple of years ago, I asked the local agencies, why don't you enter your case? Why don't you go to Cannes Lion? And the founder told me, I thought you had to be invited. I'm like, no.
That's so humble. I love that.
And he's like, well, I'm not invited, so I don't. No. So I also have been advising Cannes Lions as well. You need to go to China a lot more. First of all, to explain to the local, agency industry and local agency professionals and brands that how you are operated, how you would really like to embrace, the innovations that you have never seen before. So if you can use the power of your global platform to bring these true Chinese innovation to the forefront, to the global stage, I think people will be surprised. I think people in the West will be shocked how some of those Chinese brands are doing
How
marketing.
creative and innovative they can be.
Exactly.
I agree 100%.
Can Lion probably needs to broaden their awards categories and include a lot more variety, if I may, because a lot of time I mini program, right? Which categories of awards that you enter? There's no such thing, I guess. So I think Can Lion, to their credit, is a very humble organization. They're really learning and they're taking a lot of efforts while going to China. So that's the kind of gap of understanding from both parties that me and my little humble company hopefully can try to start to close. That's what I'm still very involved in Can Lions.
Have you seen a increase of Chinese entries over the years since you've been involved?
We saw more.
Yeah.
But
that's good.
But I think that Can Lions need to come to China even more to go into lower tier cities to educate. So if they come to China and still do big events in Beijing and Shanghai, you're only reaching multinational agencies. Right, I mean they're already very familiar with how Can Lions is operated. So Can Lions, agree. So they recently have done an AR Academy. It's a joint event they've done with NetEase internally incubated, but now has spun off AR company. They've done a joint AR Academy in Hangzhou. And they're inviting, local brands and multinational brands. And they invited Burger King global CMO to go and give a sharing session in the AR Academy. So they're making
an effort. They are. That's fantastic. That's really good. I mean, we've noticed that we've entered a few awards before, but whenever we enter an award, we've never entered Can Lions yet. Whenever we enter an award in the UK or in the US, we're normally the only Chinese agency that's entering Chinese work. And I mean, I would definitely love to see more Chinese agencies working with global brands, even entering Chinese work into awards categories, because I think just the kind of the Chinese landscape, you mentioned earlier, rapid innovation, how fast consumer expectations are changing, the opportunities of different platforms and technology. There's so many things that you could lash onto as a marketer to create new and innovative solutions, whether it's service, creative, social, whatever it may be. There's so many opportunities, and it feels like a lot of brands, and I think brands should push for this as well, right? When they're working with Chinese agencies, look, you guys, we've got these great opportunities. Let's create some outstanding work that we can really show off and enter into awards. So marketing tech, this is an area that we don't talk about much here, actually. So it's great to have you here. And one of the biggest questions we asked a lot is, I guess, the challenges with marketing technology in China. And I guess a lot of people already know that it's very difficult to integrate data between the various platforms, because a lot of times they're not very friendly with each other in terms of like sharing data or even sharing user journeys in that case. What are, in your experience, the biggest challenges with marketing technology in China?
I think you'll be surprised about my answer. The biggest challenge is not data, it's not technology, it's people.
I'm not surprised, because I know it always comes down to people, and we always say this on
I tell you, I know that there are walled gardens everywhere. There's the same in China, and then they're super protective of their users' data, which quite rightly so. But it doesn't mean that the big platform are the only people that have data that they are happy to collaborate. So my first listed portfolio company, they're a big mobile data company. The fact that they are listed, meaning, it's a legitimate business. They are working with various parties, whether it's government or it's a non-profit organization or marketeer, and see the massive depth and breadth of their data. How can they help these various parties with their data power? So I don't think because platform is super protective can be an excuse. It's not. I mean, there are data partners everywhere that you can do partner with. And technology itself, All these MarTech startup, they evolve very quickly, like we constantly say, China's speed. So you're never short of any kind of innovation, right? But the reason why I said it's people is the bigger company, the more challenge or bigger this challenge is. Because people, first of all, are hesitant to embrace change, because if you introduce a new technology, that means your way of doing things has to be changed. Now, that means you have to learn new things. And how many people actually wanted to learn new things, right? The second challenge, also related to people, is the actual decision makers tend to be the CEO, the CMO, the COO, CFO. If they're not close enough to these MarTech, they don't really know how these MarTech is going to, or how they're going to benefit from applying or adopting these MarTech. But the people who will feel the immediate benefit tend to be the people in the middle, mid-management, or the entry level, because they're still doing things in a very labor-intensive way. They really would like to use a tool, a marketing technology tool, to come in and, first of all, simplify the way things are done and automate the way things are done, but they're not decision makers. And oftentimes they don't have the courage to go up to the CEO and say, I've had enough. I need this and that kind of tools. So there's a big gap between people who had the decision to make the difference, versus people who really need the difference to be made to them. There is a huge gap. So the technology is always there. And this is an even bigger challenge with the agency industry, because the agency industry in the last, I would say, 40 years hasn't really changed much in terms of the way things are done. It's not only just the fact that agencies don't have that many data. It's the way that things are still done manually. So every big piece of business that agency won, they will celebrate, but when they turn around, they will start to weep, because they know there's a big piece of business they won. That means they have to throw more people, and that's more cost to the business. But there are things in the agency that it's a factory line of work. You should find ways to automate it.
Sure.
But if agency in the good old days, when they're profitable and making big, generate big revenue and make big profit, if they chose not to invest some of those profit into automation, they certainly are not in any position today to make that sort of investment, because they're struggling with their profit generation. So it is the biggest challenge, people. And I've been invited more and more by brands themselves to go in and talk in their China management committee meeting, APAC committee meeting, global committee meeting. Whatever I say to them, that's how technology has evolved in China, how technology can help you. They are wow.
Yeah, there's so much out there.
Yeah, but after the committee meeting finished, everybody back to their day-to-day work again, heads down, got sucked into the day-to-day operation, and they've forgotten about we need to do so and so to make changes. So it is a slow process. And I'm a bit worried for agents, most of the agencies and some of the clients, because if the agencies agencies talk about transformation, but a lot of times they're lip service.
Sure.
And for the client side, they talk about transformation. And the first thing they've done is to appoint someone as a chief technology or chief innovation officer. That's a big mistake. Because when you appoint that person, that almost is telling the entire company that the innovation accountability sits with that person only.
Yeah, so the rest of them don't have to worry
exactly.
about it.
How can that be? I mean,
He's innovating. I don't need to.
Exactly. We just have to hear from him. Okay, tell us, how do we transform?
What's the next innovation?
But transformation is the entire organization.
Yeah, it needs to be part of the culture.
Exactly.
Certainly.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's very interesting. It's less about the technology and the challenges with the technology. It's more about how do we get people to understand that certain things in marketing, I completely agree with you, can be automated, can take advantage of technology. So what then, in your opinion, is some of the marketing technology in China right now that's making the biggest impact, or I guess doing something new?
I will give you one example, which I think is truly disrupting a very old industry, which is research.
Wow.
You know how research is done still today,
Yeah,
right? Phone interview, face-to-face interview, focus group. But if you look at any of those, especially focus group, if you have ever sat behind those two-way mirror or one-way mirror, right? You ask the consumer, can you recall where or in what app, on what platform you last saw the ads? I bet you a lot of times those consumers are really guessing because it's so diversified, the things they use. So one of our portfolio company is an online research company, but they have combined dynamic creative, programmatic buy approach, and research to make a different automated online research product. It's not a survey monkey. It's a survey monkey plus a dynamic creative technology. What does that mean? That means, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, in China, WeChat, Jing'er Toutiao all the time. So what this company has done for clients or an agency is we will design questionnaire, and then we will put the questionnaire in the platform as part of the news feeds. But we will do it as a programmatic buy approach. Because you know programmatic buy, you have the consumer tax, right?
Yeah.
And when you do research, you brief research agency, these are the consumer profile I would like you to recruit for my research. It's the same principle. So they will insert those news feeds according to the consumer behavior tags. But the research questionnaire layout will be different according to your interest and my interest. So the same questionnaire you and I see,
will be
say on
different,
Facebook, but the layout will be completely different because you might like black, I like pink. What I'm wearing today.
It's like denim.
I know. So your questionnaire might appear on a black background, which will be eye-catching to you, and mine will be all completely. And then what sort of headline of a research that will be eye-catching to you? So all of those is to make sure that when you're scrolling down the screen, that is eye-catching to you. So you click and you answer a quick questionnaire. And the incentive that you have to pay to the respondents, right? Payment gateway is so mature these days. I can just wire the money
Especially
to you.
in China.
Yeah, wire WeChat payment or Alipay. So it's simple like that. And
so it's incentivized as well.
Of course, when you go out and do research, you have to incentivize people. You don't think people come to the focus group for free. No.
Of course.
So you can do those online. And the same company, the company is called Quick Decision, they have developed an online focus group product as well. They've combined a human moderator plus a chatbot to do 1,000 to 2,000 online focus group. And they can do it, but at the consumer end, they thought it's a one-on-one conversation. It's not you don't see yourself as in one of the 2,000 people group chat. It's not like that. It's a one-on-one engagement.
So they could do quant research as well as qualitative research.
Exactly.
Wow.
And they can do it so quick. In the old research world, if you want to do 300 cities research in China, it will take probably 3 months.
Yeah.
But with this company, they can turn around the report to you in 10 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. What was it called?
Quick Decision.
Quick Decision. I think that's fantastic because one of the biggest challenges when we work with brands are going into China is that they don't understand the consumers, the people, what they want, where they engage with content, where they hear about products and services. Something like this is invaluable for brands looking to go into China the first time.
This company is only slightly older than 2 years old, but the respondents that have taken a part of their online survey in China covers 400 cities.
Wow.
And they also work with global brands on global platforms. So they do research on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and WhatsApp. It is, I think. I'm not familiar with those platforms. So they cover more than 80 countries already in China in terms of the respondents, answering the questionnaire. So that kind of coverage would take a traditional research company probably 10 years.
This is amazing. I think we need to speak to them as a business. I can think of a few uses already for some of our clients.
Yeah, but that's the type of technology that's available, and they're very mature. In business, And
a lot of people, a lot of people in the West don't know about these kind of technologies available to them in marketing tech.
No, but you know what's interesting was we of course will put them in touch with a big company, big platform. One of the big platform, I shall not name their name. They wanted to their marketing team was tasked to do this global research about this new short form video platform that they're doing. So a lot of the people working in that marketing team used to be our old colleagues in WPP, so they know about this company quick decision. They say, why don't you invite them in? So of course we put them forward. So they went through the whole pitch process, but in the end they didn't get the business. Why? Because they couldn't meet the criteria, the procurement and the finance team put in place. You're not famous enough. You're not a true global company. You know, it's a big company. You want to embrace new technology. I think in the end, it will get stuck with all this rigid bureaucratic criteria that
like traditional research consultancies.
Exactly.
Yeah,
you have to be heard. I've never heard of you. So, you have no credibility. You have no history.
Yeah.
But they're a new startup. That's why they don't have no,
It's innovation.
Right. So in the end, the company went with a very big global research company, do it in the old traditional way. I don't know what the outcome of that research will be.
We face so many of these situations where brands pick the safe choice rather than the right choice.
Yeah.
And we've come up against big agencies where we would get literally told your creative is better, your strategy is better, but we need a safer pair of hands. Like we don't know you. You don't have offices all around the world. You don't have 1,000 staff.
How do you break it? I'm just curious. Because you're successful. So you must have convinced a lot of them to say,
we're a small agency, like we're 30 people in between China and the UK. So a lot of big brands still feel like that's not the safe choice, and we feel the same. So let's work together, like us and Quick Decision,
exactly.
and hopefully we'll be more credible, or rather credible in these guys' eyes, together. So again, we could talk all day, but I really want to move on to the future, and we always have, like, at the end of each episode, predictions, your crystal ball.
Let me reach.
tiny little crystal ball. What? I guess the question is, what do you think the future of the marketing landscape, specifically, I would love to hear about creative and the strategy, where that's going in terms of trends, or maybe even in relation to technology in the marketing space?
Sure. I think in the next at least 3 to 5 years, a lot of the marketing in China will have a very strong AI element in it, artificial intelligence. I mean, you look at the most successful new platform or new challenger to Tencent and Alibaba is ByteDance, Toutiao, and Douyin or TikTok here. And then they are completely AI backed. And if I can talk about the macro level, the Chinese government is taking AI very seriously. If you go back to 2 years now, in July 2017, the State Council at central government has published a paper called The Next Generation AI Development. That paper is more than just slogan, but it's got clear KPI for 2020, 2025, and 2030. So the government wanted to be measured as well. And that paper has given the nation the overarching strategy and direction where the country would like, where the country would like AI to take the country to. And once that paper was out, then that direction got cascaded down to all the local, government level. And that paper also gives the direction for investment. So a lot of the hot money has now, flood into AI-related industry. So help a lot of the AI startup to grow faster. And because of the sheer size of the population, China has the world's largest STEM graduate. In terms of AI talent, we're still behind the US. But don't forget, a lot of the AI talents in the US now are Chinese.
Sure.
So the government actually, not just central government, but every local level government has a talent acquisition incentive scheme in place to attract these AI talent to come back to China to help grow the AI industry. And data. Do you know that by end of next year, China will produce 20% of the world's total data? In another 10 years, 2030, China will produce 30% of the world's data.
Wow. That's amazing.
And then it's all because of us, right? Chinese consumers we're churning up data on a day-to-day basis, and Chinese consumers are very tolerative, and they wanted to embrace change, so they're very friendly to anything new you want to test on them. And earlier on, we talked about Haidilao, right? It's the Chinese hot pot. Next time, Arnold, you go to Beijing, I will highly recommend you to go down to one of their restaurants in Beijing where they put in place 6 robots in the restaurant delivering food to the table. And in the kitchen, they have all these robotic arms, preparing orders for you.
Living in the future.
Of course, I mean, in the peak hours, I'm sure human waiters still run faster than the...
For now.
but that's how consumers will, they will give you opportunity or the space to try the trial and error. And in Shenzhen city government, I don't know whether it's Tencent or not, but Shenzhen city government has adopted artificial intelligence and facial recognitions in their bus transport. I think in Asia, in most Asian countries, lorry drivers are the worst, followed by bus drivers. And they're driving on the long hours. They got fatigued easily, tired easily, so they fall asleep or they use the phone. And so the bus organization didn't want that to happen. So they put in place facial recognition camera in the bus. So if you fall asleep, it detects and it will send out beeping sound to wake you up.
Wow.
And if you dare to reach out to your phone, it got beeping sound, and it knows as well. So that's the kind of environment that people are not hesitant to try. So it's a very friendly environment for any artificial intelligence, whether you're a 2C, consumer goods, or you're a 2B solution, you have the environment to try it. So at the moment, artificial intelligence is a national movement now.
Yeah.
If I may use the energy, it's like another wave of cultural revolution. But this time, it's all about artificial intelligence.
Wow.
So that is also affecting the way that we do marketing. So I believe it's already happening now, but in the next 3 to 5 years, there'll be even more and more AI back and AI power marketing approach or a new marketing campaign. So that's a space I would advise you and all the marketing professional to watch.
That's amazing. Thank you. And I think that's a fantastic point to end on. It's been an absolute honor, Bessie. I've learned so much just talking to you, and I hope our audience enjoyed this episode.
Thank you very much for
We'd love to
giving
have
me
you
the
back
opportunity.
sometimes again. Can't believe I'm talking about that already, but thank you very much again.
Thank you so much, Arnold.
Cheers,
and
guys.
thank you.